All right, let's jump right in. We're going to take a really close look at one of Charles Bukowski's most powerful poems. It's incredibly short, but trust me, it packs an entire universe of pain, family trauma, and the quiet violence of being forced to be happy. And we're just going to drop you right into the emotional core of it all with the final, absolutely chilling lines. This one image, this paradox of a smile that just radiates sadness, well, that's the key that unlocks everything else. It's like a short circuit, where the very idea of happiness becomes the delivery system for despair.
So, to really understand that smile, we've got to go back to the beginning of the poem. And it doesn't start with a person. It starts with a fishbowl. And this isn't just some random detail, it's the central symbol for a whole way of being.
So the scene, right? It's deceptively calm. You've got 5 goldfish just circling and circling endlessly. This image, right off the bat, gives you this feeling of confinement, of a life lived in these tight loops with absolutely no escape. They're trapped in that curved glass, kind of like thoughts you can't get out of your own head.
And this is where it gets deep, because this isn't just about a fishbowl. It's a statement about ontology, the very nature of existence in this little world. For the fish, and you can bet for the family too, life isn't a journey forward. Nope. It's just repetition without a destination. It's a living diagram of being trapped.
Okay, so now let's pivot to the emotional heart of the poem. This is where the quiet horror of that fishbowl collides with the main human conflict, a mother's desperate command and, well, her own devastating reality.
And here it is, laid out plain as day. On one side, you have the direct order, be happy. But on the other, you have the unspoken truth, revealed in a smile that shows just how impossible that command really is. It's a performance of happiness that just ends up making the pain even louder.
So you have to ask, where does all this pain come from? Well, Bukowski wasn't just making this up. He was born right into it. His family history, the immigrant mother, the abusive American father, growing up poor in Depression-era LA, it's not just a backdrop. The source material argues it's the very language the poem is written in.
But, just looking at his life story, it doesn't quite explain the sheer force of it all. To go deeper, we have to look at these invisible psychological forces that are just tearing this family apart from the inside out.
So the father's violence, it's presented here as something more primal. It's a manifestation of what psychoanalysts call thanatos, the death drive. He's full of rage because, as the poem puts it, he couldn't understand what was attacking him from within. It's this nameless chaos inside him that he just projects outward as brutal, rigid control.
And what's the response to all that rage? Well, that's where the mother comes in, with this tragic, twisted version of Eros, the life drive. Her push for happiness, her lessons in how to smile, it's all a desperate attempt to choose life. But in an environment this toxic, that life drive just gets warped into another tool of repression, a failed lesson in joy.
And this is where the poem gets shockingly modern. It takes this simple, universal act of smiling and shows how it can be turned into a tool for suppression, maybe even a kind of weapon.
I mean, it's a jarring question, isn't it? But the poem forces you to really consider it. In a world where we're all constantly told to be positive, Bukowski's work is this stark reminder that being told to be happy can actually be a form of control. And the damage this does, it's profound. When happiness is mandatory in a house full of pain, it becomes a weapon that you turn on yourself. It leads to what the source material calls psychic atrophy, where your real emotions get hollowed out and replaced by a performance. It's a slow, quiet erasure of the self.
The mother's smile is basically a prayer, a ritual she's performing to try and ward off all the misery. But it's a failed ritual. Instead of giving them comfort or some kind of escape, it just shines a spotlight on how brutal their reality really is. It's a piece of technology for the soul that just completely breaks down.
All right, hang on, because for this last part, we're going to explore a really radical, provocative rereading of the poem, one that flips our whole understanding of the mother's role completely on its head.
So, the standard way to read this is that the mother is a tragic victim. Simple enough. But what if she's not? This black swan reading suggests she might actually be the true architect of the family's psychological prison.
Now, this reading makes a really crucial distinction. The father's violence is physical. It's about beating bodies. But the mother's relentless command to smile, well, that's a different kind of violence. It's psychological. It's a way of beating the soul into submission, of policing a child's inner world to make sure the cycle of trauma just keeps on turning.
And in the end, there's no way out.
The poem doesn't offer any escape, no big moment of release. It ends right where it began, in a circle. The very structure mirrors the content, the endless circling of the fish, the looping cycle of abuse, and the way a traumatic memory plays over and over and over again.
So the poem leaves us with the mother's haunting question. After everything we've seen, the fish, the father, that devastatingly sad smile, this question, it feels less like a gentle inquiry and more like a final, chilling command. It just hangs there in the air long after you finished reading.